Now, I would like to introduce our first keynote speaker, Christiane Taubira, former French Minister, Garde des Sceaux. Christiane Taubira has been a strong fighter for social justice. As Minister of Justice, she is famous for the law allowing gay couples to marry. It was a very difficult battle. She is also known for the law reforming penal and prison policies, and she is the author of several books. Please join me in welcoming Christiane Taubira to the stage. Thank you.
Merci. Takutsi Nakawe, notre arrière-grand-mère croissance, a créé le...
Great-great-grandmother created the world. I'm convinced of this. And then her body fell to shreds. Yes, this I know. Takutsi Nakawe is called the dismembered. Yes, this I know. When I weep over the world, show me the lame bird that supports my breast. This is taken from an American Indian song. What emergencies do we face? There are so many of them that we should faint at the sight of them. The most pressing emergency is the one that have brought you together here today. The receding shoreline, these island territories about to be submerged, mangroves disrupted, glaciers misdirected, decline, the disappearance of plants and animals, air pollution, respiratory diseases, fires that are more and more rampant, winds that reach hurricane speeds that whip up into storms, water growing scarcer and scarcer. That has become a cause of conflict across borders. These emergencies are all with us, and one of the consequences of these disruptions and these terrible plagues, we have urban human settlements, multiple, and movement of people motivated by growing difficulties and loss of hope back home, and the conviction that things will be better elsewhere in spite of the opposition and the hostility. And this movement of human populations makes it possible to share experience, to share a common language, know-how, cultures, and art of living, a mode of life. These movements of human populations have emerged as a consequence of climate change, and we would do well not just to become accustomed to them, but to prepare for them. Beyond these emergencies, as I said, there is much to worry about. The climate emergency is the cause and the condition and the consequence of other emergencies, social emergencies. We have become so accustomed to vulnerability, inequality, precariousness, both old and new. Well, we can add the financial urgency, which has become so present recently. There is the economic emergency, this manner of organizing our mode of production that is obsolete and that has not been properly supported in its necessary transformation and has led to hordes of jobless and homeless people. And then we have the urgency of mobility and a need to think our transportation, to rethink the way we get around. And then there is the cultural emergency. What do we share? What is our common heritage? What are our common values? What are our common knowledge, our understanding of beauty and compassion, and what heritage will give shape to the idea of us and common initiatives? We have political emergencies. We can't simply get used to injustice and inequality and tension and selfishness, cynicism, greed, speculation. The world, with its extraordinary opportunities. I am an optimist. I think it's worth fighting. I'm a fighter, and I see glimmers of hope. Glimmers of hope lie in multiple initiatives here in Paris and elsewhere. These glimmers of hope lie in the commitments made by cities and other local authorities in citizens' initiatives, in neighborhood associations, NGOs, and joining up of cities and local authorities, challenging federal authorities. There are glimmers of hope, and we have to clear the way for them to develop further. What role can we play as women? Do we have any particular task to take up? Does it fall to us to undertake anything in particular? Do we have a unique role to play? And if so, what is our legitimacy in taking up these initiatives? And I will answer that question the way the mayor of the city of Paris has done, with a resounding yes. It is not something to be left to men. The matter of taking responsibility for these initiatives grow out of our long history of collective oppression as women, of exclusion, of the subjection to violence. It emerges from our long history of being crushed under layer upon layer of discrimination. It is part of our long history of being confronted with power that isolates, that ostracizes. And it grows out of our struggle, generations long, to conquer our freedoms and our rights. Demand emancipation and independence. Impose ourselves as legal citizens. Through these struggles, through these acquired rights, we are now in a position, we have the ability, and we are legitimate in imagining new public policies, different public policies, and take charge of the future of the world. We will necessarily and inevitably do better. The entire world is an angel in rags, grinding its teeth, and the earth asks why of the sword that is brought down. This is taken from the work of a Guadeloupean poet. As we know, as we've heard from our host, the mayor of the city of Paris, there are battles to be waged. We have to be determined. We have to have the courage and go. We know how violent the pushback can be. We know how rough the harassment can be, the mistreatment, but we know our own strength, and we know how resistant we are, and we know how resistant the mayor of the city of Paris is. We are aware of numerous experiments underway, smart city twinnings, legal initiatives in Europe, in Asia, in the US, in the Americas, in Africa, and here in France. We would like to tribute to these fighters, and we are resolutely optimistic. We know we will succeed. We know that right is on our side and that it is our duty to leave future generations with a better world. It is up to us to take charge of the future of the world. We know what we must pass on, what it is our duty to pass on, and we know that there can be no respite. We cannot for a minute leave off in the struggle. We cannot be content with initial successes. Leave off after having scored a few modest victories. We can't allow ourselves to engage in pride if things go our way initially. We can't let down our guard. We cannot but go straight forward, unflinchingly. We must, and we shall, in the case of even a momentary weakening, if we flinch just for a minute, we know what will happen. Alexander Pushkin is there to remind us. Waves. Who has halted you? Who has harnessed your powerful surge and transformed this tumultuous tide into quiet, still waters? Whose magic scepter struck down in me hope and joy? And who has plunged me into a lazy slumber? Who has stilled my youthful energy? Waves, resume your surge. Destroy the ramparts. Where are you? Oh, rage, symbol of freedom, which has galloped over these stilled waters. So let us all avoid becoming enslaved waters. I urge you. Thank you.